At what point does a protest become a cesspit for radicalisation?
We'll find some Jews there. Lord the Zionists, not the blood.
Weekend after weekend, for 3 years, we've seen disturbing scenes on our streets that have unveiled serious, deep-rooted hatred for Jews, and that clearly have given rise to the ongoing attacks on innocent Jewish people in our country. We've seen chants of jihad on our streets.
Look at this ummah. This is an ummah of jihad. This is an ummah that believes in Allah. And Allah says as a solution, وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ. Fight in the way of Allah those who fight you. Do we have armies?
Yeah.
Do we have soldiers?
Yeah.
Do we have tanks?
Yeah.
Do we have weapons?
Yeah.
Do we have an ummah that's over 1 billion?
Yeah.
We have everything.
It's truly disturbing stuff, isn't it? And in my opinion, the Met Police have gaslit the British public to believe the word jihad had many different meanings. We all know what these people mean when they say jihad, don't we? Then there's open support for terrorist organisations like Hamas.
It's the resistance, isn't it? You know, when the people are subjugated and suppressed, you're going to have rebellion, and you're going to have resistance. And that is what I think Hamas, to me, stands for, really. It is standing for the people of Palestine. We all know, really, that this is, you know, over 75 years of oppression and subjugation and suppression, really. And people are gonna obviously, you know, stand up for their rights. And that's what it is. It's fighting for the rights more than anything else. That's my opinion. That's what I believe in, really.
And, of course, Nazi salutes, beheading gestures and spitting. And then there's the calls to globalise the Intifada. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd argue that the chance for globalising the Intifada means they want global terrorism against Jewish people, which is exactly what has happened over the last 3 years, isn't it? Now, I can hear a lot of people screaming at the TV, what about free speech, Alex? Well, I'd argue these people's right to protest and their free speech has been well and truly observed over the last 3 years. And what is it that the government can actually do to appease them now? The government has recognised Gaza as a state. They've condemned Israel and even signalled it would arrest Netanyahu if he travelled to the UK. This isn't the same as the suffragettes who campaigned to change British law and win equal rights for women. They had a clear goal, clear objectives, clear inequality. So what is it these Palestine protesters actually want? Well, to globalise the Intifada. Well, they've seemingly achieved that too. 3 years of it. We're seeing massive amounts of attacks against Jewish people all over the world. Now, in my opinion, these protests have just become a hotbed for radicalisation, anti-Semitism and pure and open hatred for Jews. And that's why I say we have to ban these hate marches once and for all. It's gone on long enough.
Here's what most people don't realise. Your personal data isn't just floating around. It's being bought and sold every single day by data brokers. That means employers, strangers, scammers and even criminals can access it. And that's how identity theft, fraud and harassment starts. Now, sure, you could try removing it yourself, but it takes hours of forms and emails, and even then, it usually pops right back up. That's why this video is brought to you by Incogni. Incogni contacts data brokers on your behalf and demands your information is deleted from their databases, and they keep on doing it to make sure it stays gone. And they've just launched an unlimited plan with custom removals. So if your info appears on some random website, you can paste the link and their privacy team will personally work to get it taken down. It's simple. Click the link in the description, create your account, give permission, and they handle the rest. Head to incogni.com/GB News. And with the code GB News, you can get a huge 60% off an annual plan. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code now. It works out at less than a coffee a month. It's also totally risk-free for 30 days. Take back control of your personal data today with Incogni. And a big thanks to them for supporting the channel.
All right, you get the thoughts of my panel. Political commentator and social media star Emily Hewittson's here. Former Labour Minister Bill Ramell's joining me. And Reform MP for Romford, Andrew Rosendale, is in the room too. Andrew, I'll start with you. I am sick of it. I have been to so many of these protests. Viewers who watch this show regularly will have seen me at them. I have seen some disturbing things at them, at these protests. And frankly, I just don't know how much more the British public can take and what their objectives are.
Well, this is an abuse of free speech. So we cherish the idea in this country that everyone is free to express their views and to demonstrate and to say things which the government may disagree with. But these guys are basically promoting hatred. Hatred against Jewish people, hatred against Britain, against our values. And frankly, we are all sick of this. We're sick of the cost. I mean, the police, the amount of police time and finances have to go into dealing with these marches week after week after week. This is an abuse of free speech. And I think that freedom in this country we cherish, but not when it's abused. And these people are abusing those opportunities. And I think that the time has come to say enough is enough.
What do you think, Emily?
Well, I am pro-free speech and I don't like banning things. However, I think most people that believe in free speech understand that there has to be a limit when there's clearly an incitement of violence. And I think these protests have gone on too long. I think in an ideal world, if the protests could go ahead and we had the resources and trust in the judicial system, that anyone inciting violence and hatred against Jews would be prosecuted, then I'd perhaps be more open to the idea of them continuing. But anyone that's been to central London when one of these protests has been going on understands it's such a hostile environment, and I'm not even Jewish. I mean, I remember one time I was leaving Parliament, Westminster Tube Station had closed down for one of these marches. I was speaking to one of the police officers asking what the nearest route to get home was, and I had people screaming at me that I was entitled for asking for an alternative safe route home.
No, it's bonkers. Trust me, I know how you feel. I've been there as well. It's not a welcoming environment if you don't agree with those people, I'll tell you that for sure. Bill, the Prime Minister the other day has said that chants like globalise the Intifada are racist. I think just to paraphrase him slightly there. Have they let this go on for too long now?
Well, look, some of the hateful comments that were shown there on these marches, I've got no sympathy for whatsoever, but I'm fundamentally against banning protest and free speech. There is a legitimate view in this country amongst many, many people that many of the actions of the Israeli government have been completely disproportionate, and people want to be able to protest against that. And also, if you don't allow people to protest, you'll just drive it underground.
That's a fair point.
And my view is that unless you are committing acts of violence or advocating violence, you should be able to protest. However, with caveats. One, there's a real responsibility on the organisers of protests to police the marches. And if you've got people advocating violence, you need to pull them out. If they're carrying Nazi symbols, you need to root them out. But also, the police need to be more consistent. Now, there have been scores of arrests of people on these demonstrations because the things they've said or the placards they've been carrying commit to violence, but I think it needs to be done more consistently. And I agree with the Prime Minister, globalise the Intifada. Unacceptable.
But why is he coming to that conclusion now? This has been going on for years, a lot of it under his premiership.
No. I've heard him say that before, that it's unacceptable.
Why do we allow it to, if it's racist, why do we allow it to continue?
Well, I don't think we should, but we need to be careful and we need consistency. You played the clip from Kemi Badenoch where she said it's unacceptable to say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Now, I happen to disagree with that slogan, but it's not advocating violence.
Do you not think so? I think it is. I think it's saying to eradicate the Jews from the River of Jordan.
No, it's arguing for a Palestinian state, which is a legitimate point of view.
But I don't think that's a legitimate point of view.
I think we need consensus and clarity on what is advocating violence and what is not.
But don't we also need consensus and clarity as to what these people want? They are shutting down London. They're shutting down major capital cities. They are, in many cases, very intimidating people. What is it that we can do? You can protest the Israeli government. They aren't here. We aren't the Israeli government. We're the British people. the government's already bent over backwards for them.
Well, I've got some sympathy. For that view. I think some people who take part in these protests think the British government has it within its gift to deliver a Middle East peace solution that it's been in existence for or not been there for decades, and it's unrealistic and it's naive. But people do have a right to protest, and I think we will rue the day where we fundamentally stop that right.
I don't want people to lose their right to protest, but I do think they've got to be limitations, and this has been going on for so long. It will never, ever end. It will never, ever end. Andrew?
But why should they be allowed to protest in central London and disrupt everybody else's lives? If they want to protest, they can perhaps go to Hyde Park. Let them have a protest there. Let them have one protest, but after that, put them somewhere else where they can scream as much as they like, but they don't disturb everybody else. And as far as the hatred these people are promoting, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable in British society. It's an abuse of freedom, and unless you tackle it, and we haven't tackled it, we've basically appeased it yet again, these people are going to carry on and carry on and carry on, and Jewish people don't feel safe in their own capital any longer. And frankly, it's because of the weakness of this government, and it's because of, I think, the Mayor of London, who is basically sympathetic to these people. And frankly, enough is enough. We've all had enough of this, Andrew, and it needs to stop.
Enough is enough. You know, demonstrations are disruptive, but that's intrinsic to a free society where people have a right to protest.
But you don't have the same demonstrations week after week after week.
I'll tell you what,
one is enough.
We need to think through how enforceable some of these bans are. Take the prescription of Palestine Action, which I personally supported, but we've now got so many people proclaiming to support Palestine Action, it's virtually impossible for the police to police that. Think this through.
What, you're talking about the right to people to protest, but what about the right of Londoners to carry on their normal lives and the right of Jewish people to feel safe?
Absolutely, Jewish people should feel safe.
But by allowing these protests week in, week out, and it is a weekly recurrence for 3 years now, you are then curtailing the freedom of Jewish people to feel safe in their capital city.
Sorry, let's not exaggerate. It's not a weekly occurrence. You know, there's been several months between the demonstrations. But
I can guarantee you, somewhere in the country this weekend there is a Palestine protest bill, and that's the problem, isn't it? Well, yes, no, fair enough. Look, let's just play the clip of Kemi Badenoch, shall we?
They were given the benefit of the doubt, but it is quite clear that they are used as a cover for promoting violence and intimidation against Jews. Anyone saying globalise the Intifada or chanting from the river to the sea knows exactly what they're doing. They are trying to let people know that there is support for harming Jews. We need to make sure that that is stopped completely. Otherwise, we're going to continue seeing horrific events like we saw in Golders Green this week, or like we saw in Manchester in Heaton Park Synagogue last year.
Yeah, used as a cover, Andrew. Do you think they're being used as a cover?
I think they are, yes. And I think that extremists in this country are hiding behind these kind of demonstrations in order to promote their agenda of hatred. And I see it all over the place. We see it in different parts of the country. We see it in schools. We see it on protests. Frankly, it's not the British way of doing things. Yeah. It really isn't. And Kemi's got a good point there. I actually think that freedom of speech is something we should cherish. The right to demonstrate is something we should always support. But this has gone way beyond what is acceptable.
I think it's important to note that most people that go onto these protests, I accept, do not have extremist views, but it is a breeding ground for extremism. Take the example, the other week when there was a vigil for the 2 victims of the Golders Green attack. People from the pro-Palestine side thought it was an appropriate time to also stage a mini protest there.
Yeah.
Which is outrageous.
We saw that on the day of the October 7th attacks. There was already someone planning a Palestinian march the next day. And and this is the thing I worry about, Bill, is that I want people to have the right to freedom to protest, but after 3 years of protesting for the same thing over and over again, the British government's already given in to appease these people with recognising Gaza as a state, basically saying they'll arrest Netanyahu.
It was the right thing to do to recognise, and it was a Palestinian state.
Okay, fine. Whatever you want to call it, I think it's appeasement. You may disagree. What more can the British government do that would stop these people from going out to protest?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question, and I
don't think because we know you can't answer because they will continue to protest.
Absolutely, and I think there is a degree of naivety amongst the protesters that think that a dispute that's been going on for 100 years, that the British government has it within its ability 100%. To resolve this problem magically. It's not, but people have legitimate concerns about the Middle East. They have legitimate concerns about the actions of the Israeli government. In a free society, you might not agree with those views, but they have a right to protest about it.
Again,
and I think
totally
it's a dark day if we just say we're going to ban it.
Totally agree. I do wonder if there was a Tommy Robinson march every single weekend or every month or so, whether the government would have said, do you know what, those far-right lunatics, as they might call them, they've got to go.
Well, I speak personally. Go back through my track record, and I've supported the right of people across the political spectrum to protest and go on demonstrations. And there is, frankly, a hypocrisy across the political spectrum. We support free speech and protest when we agree with you. We don't when we don't.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've gone out on a limb before and backed these protests, but I think 3 years on, with the amount of terrorism that is facing the Jewish community more and more regularly, I think it's time we do something, and I just don't. I don't want the blood on anyone's hands, particularly our government's hands, to say that you haven't done enough to protect people. But there you go. That's my opinion. The Metropolitan Police states that in regards to the mention of jihad, each incident is reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Whether a matter is referred to the